right, what is up, everybody? It is officially football season. We started last night, week one, had our preseason game last week. So, kind of got a game and a half under our belt. Notre Dame and Navy kicked off today. USC plays San Jose tonight. So, we are officially back at it. I hope you guys are doing well. My voice is not. This time of the year, it's pretty much what happens all the time. I guess your vocal cords, much like your fitness level, I guess, has to get back in shape. You have to get ready to go. So extensive yelling kind of gets my voice spent early in the season, and then it kind of catches up later on. But we got a win last night. Played okay on defense. Got a lot of things that we need to clean up. Interesting to see. Last night was a little bit different just because of the offense that we played and the personnel that we played. We played a 10, 11-ish empty personnel team with a bunch of good players on the perimeter, a quarterback that's going to Western Kentucky. So, a little bit different style, a little bit different brand to play, different game plan, than your normal high school football stuff. So, trying to get pressures dialed in to empty, pressures dialed into, they were running some quad stuff. Quads is interesting because I think there's, obviously there's some protection issues for the offense. They didn't have a ton of Q runs out of it, which would have made it really interesting. But defensively sometimes, especially when if they can stretch the perimeter a little bit with some athletes, quads make zone blitzes a little bit funky, especially when your zone pressures, you're constantly working on 300 threes and 400 twos and hot pressures and, things that are generally speaking, you're working on things to quote unquote normal formations. So quads makes that a little bit of an issue. It's hard to get enough underneath droppers. Ball's going to come out of the quarterback's hands rather quickly. So you've definitely got to have enough players there. So, the quads theory makes you almost have to go man to man, or at least something I've been looking at it the last couple of weeks. I'm just not exactly sure how they do it, but kind of the Brian Flores deal with the Dolphins where they send a ton of pressure. It's man alignment, but they play vision and break theories. And I think that would be really good, especially versus empty, because if you're sending 5 or 6, the ball's probably coming out. Definitely if you're sending 6, obviously the ball's coming out. But you can get some people covered up. So if the ball comes out quickly, you can rally to screens. And 2 of the touchdowns we gave up 2 touchdowns with the starting unit in the game, 1 in the first half, 1 in the third quarter, I believe. And 2 of those were man deals. One of them was poor leverage on a bubble screen where we should be in good shape if they think they're checking the bubble because of leverage or numbers and we're covered down 3 over 3. You would think we'd be in good shape. And then the second one was a quads deal where we didn't get the quarterback on the ground, and the group that was playing man to man, I didn't do a good week. I didn't do a good job in practice that week with all the empty stuff with that group. So it was one of our man free pressures where my Sam linebacker was involved in the deal. And most of our man deals are our back end guys. So the Sam got involved in a quads deal, and him and the backside safety ended up covering the same player, and we unchained somebody on a wheel. The quarterback had him dead to rights, and we didn't get him on the ground, and he extended the play and threw the wheel for a touchdown. So, the only 2 touchdowns we gave up were man theories, which I've talked about this before. We're not a man team. It's not what we do best. But the matchup for us last night was their O-line was a little bit weaker in pass protection. Um, their skills were better on the perimeter, a little bit taller than us, ran a little bit better than we did. So certainly zone pressures were the game plan. But after watching film, their O line struggled handling pressures and they were the weak point. So, when you're trying to figure out where to attack and when you're looking at game plans, obviously we had to get after their D line. I'm sorry, their O line with our D line and pressure. My best pass rushers are actually my linebackers. So um, we had to pressure, but then they put us in some deals where we had to play man free and some zero stuff. And we actually busted one of those and poor leverage on another one. So the two touchdowns we gave up were man coverage deals. So, it kind of makes it frustrating in a way because that's not really who we are. But again, to look at the matchup in a game plan and understand that within that matchup, how are we going to attack was, one of those deals where we had to do what we had to do. So the week before, we're starting to see some tight end twins. So two removed, tight end away, fullback in the backfield, 21 personnel. Teams are trying to run stretch because we stay in tight front a bunch. We've got some 4-down theories that we use, but I think everybody coming off of last year, I think, some tight end sets and then stretch, getting the ball out to the C gaps. A little bit of quarterback run last week, which I think coming off our playoff game last year, I think some people are going to probably try and add some quarterback run in. So, bash theories where they can attack and get the ball out to the C gap, but then also carry quarterback run components so that if we're getting to the C gap with the second and third level players, we have to be able to handle the box as well. So I think that's what we're going to see. Currently it seems to be what we're seeing right now. So it's always interesting when the season starts. Obviously, college football just started. Notre Dame played today. USC plays tonight. I think a lot of times in high school football, what you end up seeing is as the college season goes on, you start to see different trends of what people start doing as they have the ability to start watching college games and they see what college teams are doing. And, but early in the year, it's always interesting before a ton of film gets out. It's interesting to look at how teams are going to prepare to play you, how teams are going to prepare to attack you. Last year, I don't think anybody knew that we were going to be predominantly tight front, 3 high. This year, I think everybody knows that that's what we do. So, now on my end as a coordinator and somebody who's called offenses for years upon years, I have to kind of start figuring out how teams could possibly attack us. We're good in base situations to, normal 10, 11, that personnel group formations. 21 is something that we probably need to work more of, whether it be regular pro or twins. Figuring out with nub tight ends where we're going to get our support from, teaching our corners and safeties how to play the nub tight end side when we're getting those nub tight end runs, because I feel like that's going to be something that people do to try and exploit what we do on defense. We handled it last year fine. Like I said, we do have 4-down stuff. We do have pretty much traditional 4-down divorced front, split field coverage stuff. We've got some mid front stuff from our odd package. So we've got the ability to play 4-down if we need to. We've got the ability to get the box heavier and play 2 high if we need to. So those answers are always built in. I always build in answers to, again, based on what I think are our weaknesses, based on what I think offenses are going to do to us. I always build in answers for that so we don't get stuck in just 3 down or just tight front. And when teams are trying to play 21 personnel, tight ends, 22 personnel, we have the ability to make those adjustments. So I think one of the things we need to do is work on that throughout the course of the year. Even if teams aren't really doing it, find a way in practice to take 5 or 10 minutes a week or 10 or 15 minutes a week and work on tight end stuff. Making sure our kids understand that we're trying to present a picture that you may see, um, especially if you're playing teams whose game plan and offensive system is something that you've seen a million times, then obviously you want a game plan for that and you want to prepare that for that. And scout cards that are drawn need to be drawn for that scenario. But when you're playing those types of systems, because you've seen them so often, I think you can work in kind of like colleges used to do with option football. Like you can work in 21 personnel, twins, stretch, extra gap schemes, quarterback runs. You can work those periods into your practice, even if you're not seeing them that week, just so your kids know how to handle it. I think that's something that we've got to do a better job. Our kids are mature enough now. Our defense is an old enough group that I think we can mix those things in throughout the week and explain to them, hey, guys, we got to get ready to see this just in case. I think I like where our guys are. From my standpoint, I think I can have that conversation with a lot of our guys on defense and say, guys, we're going to do some work this week against things I think we might see. Trying to plan ahead and just trying to keep us ahead of the curve a little bit, as opposed to just kind of dialing into the exact game plan or the exact structure that you're playing that week. So that's something that we got to do. Got to work on our tackling circuits a little bit, figuring out ways to make them more specific to games. Ball on the perimeter is an issue. So finding a way to run, take blocks on, get off blocks, and make tackles in space, and finding drills that you need to incorporate into your practice plan. I've mentioned this before. We're an Atavis tackling team, so every week our game film goes to Atavis, and then they give us a projection for the week of, we give them the amount of time we're going to spend on tackling, and they give us a game plan or a tackle plan for the week of what we need to be doing. And then it's my job as a coordinator to take that plan, figure out which drills I like, which drills are good for us in high school, which drills can we do with the perimeter, which drills do I not want the D-line doing. And then kind of plan it out for there. But I think the thing we need to do a better job of is working blocks into our tackling circuits, getting off blocks, block destruction, getting off blocks and running and making tackles, not only, closing and tracking the near hip, not only the near foot, near shoulder, not only the come to balance strike part, but doing it in an uncomfortable manner, I think is the best way to put it. So finding a way to take all these kind of stock tackling drills and put our kids in uncomfortable positions, whether it be bad leverage, bad angles, taking blocks on, defeating blocks. And even if we have to do those in indie periods, I think we can incorporate those into indie periods. But those are the things that are kind of showing up in week 1 and week 2 for us. It's not your average tackling situation that's becoming the issue. It's, being in poor leverage situations, whether that be the ball out right now to the perimeter, whether that be rallying to things because we're, maybe zone pressuring and maybe we're lighter, or we're trying to trigger guys really quickly to now throws, playing with vision and break theories or eyes on the quarterback. And now we're trying to get guys downhill. So, a lot of space involved. That's what the game is. That's the world we live in now. So it's our job to kind of figure out how to not only get better at those things, but how are we going to practice those things to get better? How are we going to incorporate them into our practice plan and figure out ways that we need to get better? I'm tempted right now to put in, I've got some traditional 3-3 stack stuff on hold, some pressures from 3-3 stack, and then a base 2-high system that we currently play right now that our kids could play tomorrow if we wanted to. I think without freaking our kids out, I think it would protect our tight front stuff, changing the leverage from 4 eyes to heavy 5s, changing the box from that 3-1, 3-2 look to a true 3-3 stack look. I think that would change how teams have to block things personally. So I think that would put us in a scenario where We can change the blocking schemes. We can change the leverage. We can change how people are attacking the tight front and hopefully do it without changing our run fits tremendously. I've mentioned this every time I do a video or anytime I talk to people about run fits and defense. And if it's anything that's going to change the style of how we fit things, I don't like doing it. Even our 4 down stuff right now is played from 3 high, and gaps are canceled out, and we're doing things that are constantly trying to equate the fits as similar as possible to our 3 high stuff. So if we went 3-3 stack, the coverage components of it are fine. We play 2 high already in one of our fronts. So we make 3-by-1 adjustments in 2 high. We work on all our base coverages in 2 high. So I wouldn't worry about the coverage components. I would worry about the run fits. But I just really, based on what we're seeing so far and what teams try to do, I think that a true 3-3 stacked box with some pressure and some heavy 5 techniques that learn how to spill and get the ball where we need it to go. I think that would be a really good, you know, piece to protect what we do now. I think it'd be a really good complement to our tight front. Don't know if I'll get to it this week. Like I said, I've already got the way we pressure and the way we categorize our pressures into families. I think I've already got pressures that are the same coverage behind it, the same system, the same kids built into the blitzes, the same coverage components behind it. So I don't know if I'll roll it out this week. I'll see what our as I finished. I've watched our opponent play just one time through their game. So as I get into it a little bit more tonight and then tomorrow and Monday, I'll take a look and see if there's not enough there that takes time to tweak our base stuff. If I feel like their formations are base enough, or at least things that we've seen a bunch, and it won't, like last week, there were a bunch of coverage components that we had to tweak, and then there were some motion deals that we had to tweak. So had to spend a ton of time working on that. If I feel like this week there's not as much of that, then maybe we could sneak in the 3-3 stack stuff and at least get it taught, explain the theory to our kids, explain how it's similar to the other coverage structure that we play. Our kids are good at comprehending stuff like that. So I think maybe we'll find Tuesday, maybe we'll find a time, or maybe Monday, because we've changed how we practice. But I think we'll find a time to squeeze, maybe take a look at squeezing that in, line up in it, see if we have any issues, see what the issues are in the run game, see if we can fit things the way we need to fit them. But again, at least on my end, and probably my head coach's end, the 3 high stuff for us has been really good because we've limited explosives. I think we've added another layer of depth, in the defense when you talk in terms of schematics. 3 high, I think now, adds a layer of depth to the defense where not only can we come at you from different places with pressures, but that third level defender that's involved in run fits and, that third level defender in the passing game, I think has been good to us. So I shy away from going back to traditional split field just because the 3 high stuff has been so good to us. But we do it. And, if we had to do it in the 3-3 stuff, it's certainly not a huge issue for us. I just don't know if it's the way we want to live, but that will certainly be a thought as well. So has anybody else that's on, has anybody else played a regular season game or a preseason game, or has anybody else that's here had a chance to see what their structure looks like, see what people are trying to do to them, see where they're struggling or where they're good or where things are going well or where they're not going well? I know my buddies in New York will start probably sometime. They started practice maybe last week, probably some scrimmages coming up, or maybe after Labor Day, their season will start or somewhere along those lines. But I don't know exactly when every other state starts. So I imagine some people that are here or that were here probably getting ready. If they haven't started yet, they're getting ready to start. And that's always, to me, that's the biggest unknown is when you actually start playing games. I think we all have our theory of what offenses are going to try and do to us. I think we all have our theory of how teams are going to try to attack us. But until you get into games, you really don't know. I know for us on my end, I'm always real skittish, nervous, and anxious, thinking that we're going to have issues going into games. And then when we play, the issues I thought we were going to have aren't issues. The issues that we have are probably different things. But to me, that's just kind of the nature of coaching. I think as a coach, you're with your kids every day. You're with your program every day. I think you see any of the shortcomings that you have or any of the weaknesses that you have. Hey, Tim. I think you see the shortcomings and the weaknesses that you have and you freak yourself out about them. But the thing you got to keep in mind is you're not at anybody else's practices. You don't watch your opponent's practice, so you have no idea what they're going through. I think you know the things that can get you hurt in a hurry, but you don't know if the other team can do that. You don't know if the other coaching staff knows what can get you hurt. So the season becomes this anxiety-ridden roller coaster of emotions. And then, like for us, week one, we had a shutout with our starters at halftime. And, we're winning 21-0. Week two, we're winning 31-8 at halftime or 22-8 at halftime, something like that. So, I drive myself crazy with where I think we are, where I think we need to be, where our issues are, where we're struggling. And then we get to games and our kids do things better than I thought we would. We play things better than I thought we would. So as crazy as the season is, sometimes it's also playing games and the season itself become very comforting. Because to me, the buildup, the anxiety, the uneasy feeling of summer into camp into week one, I think some of that goes into, or at least some of that kind of goes away when you start playing games, right? When you start playing games, obviously issues are going to pop up and you got to fix the issues that are there. But to me, coming out of spring ball into summer ball into week one, all you're doing is thinking about everything that could happen, everything that might go wrong. And then when games happen, it's just kind of like, all right, well, now we got to go play. So first off, Tim, yeah, I mean, I think spilling for a lot of people is an issue, especially if you're a 4-down team playing with 5 techniques. It takes a lot of work to get kids to understand what they're looking at, and then said response to certain stimulus. So getting kids to understand where their eyes need to be. I think for me, in 25 years of doing this now, I would say that 90% of the time, spilling is an issue because kids don't have their eyes in the right place. And then the other 10% is either a size and talent issue or it's an ego issue where kids that understand football don't want to spill because when you spill, you probably don't make plays. So in my experience, that's probably, I would lay it out and say 90% is kids. You'd be surprised. You got to coach behind the offensive line and look at your defensive linemen in practice. You'd be surprised how many of them actually look at the quarterback or in the backfield and not at the lineman that they are visual keying. And that's why they don't spill because they don't see down blocks. So one of the reasons they go straight up the field is because they think the toughest thing to teach defensive players is the goal is not to be unblocked. The goal is to beat the blocks that you're seeing and then, reacting to blocks that you're seeing and then destructing blocks that you are seeing. And I think a lot of high school kids think the goal is to be unblocked. Um, and when you lay it out for your kids and you tell them that, good offenses don't leave people unblocked unless they're reading them. So if you're unblocked for a reason. You're either getting read or you're getting trapped or you're getting screened. I think high school kids, until you hammer it home to them, I think they feel like they need to be unblocked. I think at the youth levels, that's probably not ingrained enough in their head that defense is actually about seeing blocking schemes, fitting based off the blocking scheme, and then fitting blocks a certain way. So spilling is actually you fitting a block a certain way, which means you're telling a kid that he's getting blocked. So when you're spilling the ball, you're actually being blocked and you're telling a kid how you want to take on a block. And I don't think that is, um, it's not second nature to kids. I think it's foreign. The idea of telling them to be blocked and telling them how to be blocked is foreign to them. I think most young kids feel like the goal is to not be blocked. So I would think it's more of a mindset thing. Um, yeah, heavyweight. I compare it to previous seasons if it's the same system, uh, and I look at what people did to attack the structure previously, and then I look at the bodies and the skill set we have um, this year playing in that structure, and then I try and figure out strengths and weaknesses from there. Um, so things that we were pretty good last year rushing the passer with three down. Our two our two four eyes were lighter, probably outside linebacker type kids that could affect the passer while we dropped eight. And we're not that team this year, so that's certainly a little bit of a weakness for us. We're young up front; those kids are going to get better every week. Week one, we had a big time issue with block rec, and four eyes were getting reached on stretch schemes by guards and um, allowing tackles to get up to backers. Um, we didn't spill when we needed to, and when we were in four down stuff. So, um, but a lot of those kids, this is really their first experience with varsity football. Some of them were good JV players for us last year. So varsity football moves a lot faster. Things happen a lot faster. The game plans are way more intensive. One of the things that those young kids for us are going to have to figure out is the speed of the game has changed. The game plans have changed. The amount that we're carrying each week has changed. So those kids are only going to get better as they play each week and they start to see things. And then they start to feel out how they're getting beat or how they're getting blocked. So repetition helps that a bunch. But I always compare to previous skill sets in the same structure and then try to figure out what's good or bad for us. Yeah, we struggled last night, Philly, running with motions, and part of that was because some of it was with a nickel group, and I didn't spend enough time working on it with them. Some of it was man free, where I needed the Sam to be in coverage more than my skill players. So some of it was on me not teaching it correctly and not spending enough time on it. But as we do it more and progress, we will start, especially when it's my five back end players. So when it's my corners and my safeties doing it, we will progress to a point where we start bumping motions. And instead of fully running with them, if we were spinning to man free from too high, we would get to the point where the man free player would take the motion and the other player would become the post player. So I think that's a matter of repping it. And because we don't live in a man world, I just did a bad job. I did a bad job game planning practice the last 2 weeks. And then we got into a scenario where we were playing a team that I didn't want to play man stuff to. And I get the film and they're doing things that are um, disadvantageous to some of our zone pressures. So, like last night, one of the things we had to do is we had to choice our zone pressures together. So, if we were getting 2 by sets, we were running a certain pressure. But if we were getting 3 by sets, we had to run a different pressure because the pressure that I like versus 2 by 2s with the coverage behind it is not very good against 3 by 1. So, that's another thing that I'm currently looking at right now is within the pressures that I like that are 4 under 2 deep. How can we play those if it's 3 by 1 so I don't have to get out of those? So last night, those pressures were choiced to where I couldn't get into my 4 under 2 deeps because they were coming out in 3 by 1 a bunch and empty a bunch. So my pressures last night were more 3 under 3. And then when we needed to make a play and they were empty, um, because they were carrying some 4 by 1, we couldn't zone pressure. So what ended up happening was a situation where we ended up having to play more man deals than we like. And the game plan was not set up to be heavy man, and we're not set up to be a heavy man team. So what I found out last night was the personnel groupings that I had on the field between my base group and my nickel group. I didn't spend enough time during the week working on man to man. On the back end, we work on how we play stacks and bunches and how we bracket stuff and how we trade stuff. And we play off bracket and then we play press bracket. And so we do that on the back end, but I didn't do it enough with my Sam safeties and then the nickel group that I had in, because the nickel group I had in has some receivers in it that I don't use in my base package, but they're good man players. So on third down, when I want to play um, some man under 2 deep deals, or if I want to pressure and bring 4, but versus empty, I might have to play some man coverage deals. I bring some of my better receivers or some of our better receivers in, and we just didn't do a good job of teaching motions, running with, bumping, or how we're going to play those. So um, I know I made notes for myself on the sideline Friday night that that's something that we've got to change in the future. Because there's going to be times where even if you're not carrying those man pressures in that week, you may get to a point in a game where you need them. And if you've run them, so if they've been installed and you've run them, as long as you kind of alert your kids on the sideline, hey guys, we're going to run, these 2 blitzes that we didn't have in the composite for the game plan. So like sometime by Tuesday when we did blitz on cans, I walked the kids through the 6 or 7 pressures that we were carrying into the game. And I wanted them to be comfortable with those paths, the coverage elements behind it, because we were seeing so much 10, 11 empty quads. So I basically, I cut the blitz menu in half and got it to where we were only carrying certain pressures, and those were the ones we worked on during the week. But then, when the game comes and you have to make adjustments, sometimes you've got to kind of reach into the toolbox and pull things out that um, you didn't rep during the week. And I'm not saying that it's certainly not something that you're drawing up. That will happen from time to time. You will draw up adjustments on the sideline, especially if all 11 defensive players are there. And we're almost in that world right now where our starting group isn't part of the offense's starting group, so we can make adjustments on the sideline. So I don't think it's necessarily drawing pressures up, but it's talking to your kids about, hey guys, we didn't rep in practice this week. We didn't rep this pressure, but I think it's good for us based on what they're doing to us. So being able to do that, obviously, if you have an older group or a more mature group, being able to do that is certainly helpful. Yeah, we do it a bunch, Tim. I couldn't do it Friday night. Like I said, I couldn't do it Friday night because they were empty so much, and I don't like it to empty. The thing that we are working on, or at least I am studying and working on right now, is how to send six and play with man demeanor, but vision and break eyes on the quarterback. Because when we send six, the ball gets out pretty quick. The problem would be if people max protect and we don't get home, what happens down the field when those routes transgress into down the field routes. Whereas, your 203 deep is a little bit safer to down the field passing. There's certainly underneath holes when you're dropping less guys. Um, but a lot of times in high school, especially with 10 personnel or like empty last night, you kind of know that if you're in those deals, the ball's coming out. How can you get guys? So, like, if you're 203 deep and they're 4x1 quads, the numbers don't equate. The ball comes out, now screens, bubbles, and you have nobody there. So, um, when we do that, it's got to be versus sets that we like, sets where we think guys playing vision and break technique with eyes on the QB can get to now screens and stand up screens. It's really good versus heavy run teams. So if you're playing 11 personnel teams that run the ball, you kind of get yourself in a world where you're 8-man fronts with a lot of moving parts. It's really good. I studied this offseason, some of the Georgia stuff with Kirby Smart, and it's really good first down calls to try and generate tackles for losses. Just the pressure component, the movement component, changing blocking schemes for the other team. I think something we've got to – we were really poor last night at disguising coverage when we pressured and disguising where the pressure is coming from. So we've got another note that I made, during the game last night for us this week is we've got to work on disguising coverage in our pressures. We've got to be able to show some man-to-man looks while playing zone coverage. We've got to be able to show some press looks while bailing to take away the nows and the easy throws. So early in the game last night, they were getting into 3x1, and when I zone pressured, they were throwing stand-up screens to the single, and then they were getting the tackle out in front of it. Again, we should have been in good shape. The two-seam dropper to the single side just needed to play wider because they really had for the pressures we were bringing, they had no run game that was going to affect that player. So, we should have been able to make that adjustment. I feel like we made it after the first series. I absolutely love it. If I would carry it every day of the week versus 20 personnel. If you're playing your standard 20 personnel, two-back twins open team, I would carry all 3 or 4 of my hot pressures. I love it. 2x2, 10, I love it. 3x1, I don't love it. 21 gap scheme world, I'm not in love with it, especially internal pressures like crossfires. It's not terrible versus 21 because it's truly 8-man front. But yeah, 20 personnel, that's a big yes for me. So if I was seeing a 20 personnel team, I would definitely, all of our 6-man hots would be in play that week. And we would be working those paths and coverage deals a bunch. We actually, in our JV game, it wasn't a 6-man hot pressure, but our 5-man pressures are taught we don't teach seam curl flat to our 2-seam players when we 5-man pressure. We don't match carry deliver. And I know that drives people nuts, but we don't play Ripley's match as a base coverage concept. So match carry deliver is another pattern matching distribution that I would have to teach. Because we play 6-man hot coverage, when we pressure, when we 3 under 3 deep pressure, and then when we 4 under 2 deep pressure, any of my seam players are actually vision and break guys, and we teach them to play. They might have different landmarks or alignments, but we teach them to play the same way as they play vision and break. And we got Thursday night in the JV game, almost a pick, should have got a pick 6. The kid got hawked in, but we sent 5 and they were 2 removed and they tried to throw flood. And the 2-seam player was just sitting looking at the quarterback. Quarterback's hand came off the ball. He broke right underneath the 12-yard bench route, and should have been a pick 6. But at our level, I am a huge proponent of vision and break, letting kids play off the cue. I think a lot of quarterbacks look exactly where they're going to throw. I don't think there's a lot of checkdowns or a lot of quarterbacks in high school that come off of routes and progress from one side to the other. We don't see a ton of guys who start front side and then they progress their reads to the backside. I think protection, keeping a quarterback upright, is an issue for offenses. So I think the quarterback's clock and his progressions and how he's taught in high school kind of speeds up. So I think personally, for me, vision and break theories for us are better than match, carry, deliver. So, but yeah, certainly part of our game plan when we know what we are facing that week. So what I normally do, the 6-man hot pressures, what I do with those sometimes is I pair them with zero pressures, and then I teach my middle safety who makes the calls for me. If they're in this set, I like hots. If they're in this set, I like zeros, and then he makes the call on the field. So it's kind of check with me. Last night, my 4 under 2 pressures were tied with my 3 under 3 pressures. So we made a bunch of choice calls last night where, in the front that we were in, I gave my middle safety the choice of which 2 blitzes he could call. And we rep those all week. So we rep them in blitz on cans. We rep them in skeleton every once in a while where I give him the choice call. And then when the scout group comes out, he's got to put us in the right pressure. And we rep them in team when we need to communicate to the D linemen and the backers because they're not getting a blitz call from the sideline. They are getting a choice call, which means the blitz is going to be called on the field. So it's kind of a living document, so to speak, or a work in progress, so to speak. So we've got to work all the time in practice on communicating those deals. And when we play teams that are more check with me rather than choice blitzes, we use more of a check with me system. So I might give them a pressure. And if the team checks at the ball and looks to the sideline, I'll either get out of that pressure and into a base look, or I'll get out of that pressure and into a different pressure. So like if I had a 3 under 3 deep called and they came out in 2x2 and they checked at the line of scrimmage, I might check my blitz to a 4 under 2 deep because I like it versus that formation. If I had a 5-man called and they checked at the line, I might check it to a 6-man. If I had a zone pressure called and they checked, I might check it to 0. A lot of the times for me, if I'm pressuring and they check, I go back to base. If I'm in base and they check, I pressure just because of I'm thinking about it as an offensive coach. So I look at what we're in. And then I say to myself, when they check, all right, what is he looking at? What does he see that he likes? And how do I take away what he sees that he likes is something that I try to do. Sorry, P-Block, I didn't see that message before you pulled it. So if you're going to rephrase it or reword it, I didn't get a chance to read it to answer it. But if you want to reword it or rephrase it or change how you were asking it, I will certainly answer it to the best of my ability. But has anybody, so nobody here has played a game yet or nobody that's on? I know there's only 4 guys with us right now, but nobody's played an actual game yet. You haven't had a chance to see what's good, what's bad, what's ugly. Or you hadn't had a chance to see how your personnel matches what you're trying to do, or do you have to change what you're trying to do? Maybe your personnel isn't conducive to what you were trying to do and you've got to make some changes, or maybe got some guys injured and you have to make changes. That's always an issue. And we had a safety go down early last night. And now when you're playing a team that's got a bunch of empty and motions and quads and you've got coverage checks that the backup didn't get as many reps in, that's always nerve-wracking. But that kid went in and did a great job for us until the other kid was able, thankfully, to come back. And hopefully he's healthy enough to play this week because he's a good player for us on the back end. So, again, like I mentioned earlier, that the other thing that you find out in the season is you start to figure out what you're doing in practice and what you're not, and then you start to figure out how you got to change your practice plans. I think that's a big thing. So, you know, after that player went down, and then after we got in a lot of situations where our third down group was on the field, now I know in practice I've got to kind of schedule things a little bit differently to get the guys that I need to get reps. They have to get more reps, and then the situations that I'm seeing, you know, the good thing was last night we got in a bunch of third down scenarios where we needed a third down group. Um, the bad thing is we didn't really rep the third down stuff enough in practice to be good at it. It was good for us. We got off the field all but one time, I think, with that group on the field. Um, but those are the things that happen in seasons. Also, not only the wins and losses and the goods and the bads, but just starting to figure out what is showing up, and you look at it and go, you know what, that's my fault. We didn't do a good job of repping that. We didn't do a good job of preparing that. And then you end up, you know, changing how you practice, right? So that's part of being a coach. You've got to, and our kids now, like I said, our kids have played enough defense for us where I can go to them and tell them when I put them in a bad situation. I can go to them and say, hey, that one's on me. That's not a good call versus that down and distance or versus that personnel group. So that communication as well, being able to talk to your players about, hey guys, we should be really good here in this. And then you show them the replay on the film and try and figure out why it wasn't good. And then when you're not good, you show them the replay on film and you go, all right, guys, look, this is an issue for us. We shouldn't be in this when they're doing this. Here's why it's not good. Here's what happened. And here's why we have issues with it. So, last year, my first year at the school, so I don't know the kids as well. I only had one spring season with them, a couple months with them, so I don't know the personalities as much. This year, after being there for, going on 2 years now and a full football season, 2 spring games, they know my personality. I know their personality. They know what I'm trying to do, and I know what they're capable of doing. So now we're kind of building more football components in to where we're now able to have conversations about, hey guys, here's what I think could be an issue for us, and here's why we're working on this. A lot of conversations in practice to where, I'm talking to kids about, hey guys, look, right now, this is not how we're going to play this, but let's take a look at the adjustment in case we need it. We're at that point with this group right now, which is a good point and a good place to be. So, that's when you start playing really good defense when your kids, like the other night, there were some third downs where I wanted to pressure, and my linebackers and my middle safety looked at me and gave me the base signal. They wanted to play base defense, and I called base. So, that's when you're playing, good football, and your kids understand the system and they understand what they're seeing. They're out there playing. I'm not out there playing. So they know the things they like and they don't like. So, when they turn to you on 3rd and 5 and give you the base signal before you can make a call, now it's your choice. I could obviously choose to shake that signal off, but if the kids that are out there, that's what they want to play, then I'll play it. And if it works, then good on us. If it doesn't work, then when they get to the sideline, we'll have a nice conversation about why I call things and they don't. But, last night it worked. There was a 3rd down situation where I wanted to pressure, and my Mike linebacker gave me the base signal. He wanted to play base. And we got off the field. So, all the situations that you got to know where you are with your program. Do I think 3 deep, 2 under can be done with weak safety jumping down at snap to be unaccountable as a rusher and hit them? Yeah, I mean, obviously you're going to have to rotate behind him. So if the weak safety is going to be one of the 6 guys coming, in a 4-2 box, then you're either going to bump the will and he's going to be like into the boundary, something that is definitely doable. You can send the Sam or the Mike. I would send the Mike personally, but you can send the Mike from the field and the weak safety from the boundary, and the will linebacker in the box into the boundary can be the vision and break one of the two hot droppers, and then the Sam can be the hot dropper to the field, and then you could spin your other safety to the middle to become the deep middle player. So your hey Mark, your your spins with 6-man hot pressure, you just got to know who the hot dropper is going to be. So like one of the things we do and with our blitzes is it's a little people don't like it because it gets kind of rigid in a way, but when I send 6 and play hot pressure, it's always the same people blitzing and it's always the same people involved in the hot drop coverage, simply because I can practice it more efficiently with those kids. If I change who the hot droppers are, then I've got to make sure that every one of our players, which we've done in the past, every one of our players has to be taught how to hot drop, how to vision and break, versus 2 removed, how to vision and break versus 3-by-1, where the run fits are, where we're trying to send the ball. So one of the things I did this past year was I all of our hot pressures that are drawn up are involving the same 3 guys blitzing, and the rotation on the back end is between the 2 safeties and the Sam linebacker. So we know when we're running hots, it's always going to be some version of those 3 guys doing it. So that works out pretty good for us. But yes, you can certainly send a weak safety and use the Will as one of the 2 under guys to that side. I would send a weak safety into Mike is what I would do. So if you were a standard over front team, I would send a weak safety off the edge and then plug the Mike A or B gap and move the 3 technique or something like that. That's what I would do personally. Young DC facing a really good tempo offense. What things do you do in order to prepare for that? Do a bunch of formation periods, and you can do them on air and set up. We call it a ping pong drill. Set up trash cans or fire hoses or whatever to give them the spacing of offensive linemen, and set them up about 40 yards away from each other. Give your kids a call that they line up to, and you got to have 2 skill groups with scout cards working and a coach on each side that's going to put kids in formations. So you make a call and the kids line up and play that formation. And then when you blow the whistle, they've got to turn and sprint to the other side while looking at you to get a call and communicating the call. And then as they run to the other side, now they have to line up and play the call versus that set. And then you continue to do that for 6 or 8 reps with the 1s and then 6 or 8 reps with the 2s. And we call it our ping pong drill. So for us, we use trash cans. So I would have trash cans set up like on the 30-yard line on this side and trash cans set up on the 30-yard line on this side. Each set of trash cans would have a coach with scout cards and formations. So my guys will get a call from me and they'll line up to this set of trash cans and they'll make their coverage calls. And if it was a blitz path, they'll go through the blitz path. And then when the whistle blows, they turn and sprint to this set of garbage cans. And now they have to look at me while they're sprinting to get a call, because that's how we signal things in. Every kid on our team looks to the sideline. So, or our middle safety will get the call and echo it to everybody else. And then they sprint here. They see the formation. They line up and play the call that we're in. Then they sprint back the other way on the whistle. Trash cans, new formation set up. And now they sprint, look at me, get a call, get over here, get lined up. So that's one of the things we do when we're playing tempo teams. Your communication is really big. How you call things, how you play coverages. So our coverages are all checked with me with camp rules on how we do things. So, our kids have a system of playing formations without me having to make a lot of calls. Our blitzes are all 1-word calls. So I think your communication is huge, when you're playing tempo teams. Our offense is doing a really good job with tempo, so we got a chance to see it for 3 weeks, so that helps us out a ton also. Your order operation after a Friday night game with an upcoming Thursday game. No, we usually don't go on Saturday. I think the only time we've ever done that is in a playoff game. If we felt like we needed an extra day to prepare, we usually don't go on Saturday, even if we play on a Thursday. I think there has been 2 or 3 times in my career where we've done that. Um, but we don't do that generally. So I don't like changing the schedule on our kids. But I could certainly see, I can see we've done it 2 or 3 times in my 25-year career. I think one of the times or two of the times was definitely a playoff game. One of the other times might have been a hurricane week where schedule was crazy and we missed a bunch of practices, and that was one of the only days we could get a practice in. Um, our kids at our school currently would be fine practicing on a Saturday. I've been at places where Saturday practice, you end up missing a bunch of guys. I've been at schools where kids can't get rides unless they ride the bus to school. Um, so Saturday practice has become an issue. So that I think Galaxy, that's up to you as a coach with your program. Um, I certainly don't have anything against it. I know teams that um, lift and practice light and do game plan stuff on Saturday after Friday night games. So certainly nothing illegal about it. Certainly nothing unethical about it. Probably more of a coaching deal with your philosophy and what you want to do. So, so where is we play after Labor Day? First year middle school head coach. I'm studying game film. We run the same stuff. Do you know heavyweight who you're playing and what they run? So do you have a chance? Like I know a lot of times at the middle school, a lot of times at the middle school level, you may not know what offenses you're going to see. If you're 3-5-3 personnel and you're truly playing with 5 linebackers, then I would think you're better suited to play 21 personnel stuff. If you're a 3-3 personnel team like we are, we're better suited to play 10, 20, 11 personnel. I don't look at it. I don't look at it from a I don't look at it from a structure standpoint. This guy's unbelievable. Sorry. I am hiding and deleting somebody from here that is posting stupid stuff. I don't look at it heavyweight as a structure deal. I think 3-5-3 becomes a lot of 8-man fronts, 6-man boxes, much like a 4-2-5 team. So I just look at the personnel more than the structure. So if you're playing 5 linebackers, I think you're better suited to play 21 personnel. If you're playing 3 linebackers, 5 DBs, I think you're better off against 10, 11, 20 personnel. Your structure is going to look the same. A lot of the time, it's just a matter of if you had 5 linebackers on the field, there's probably certain coverages you can't play that you can play with 5 DBs on the field. So I look at it more from the personnel than I do the structure. The personnel you have on the field compared to the personnel that the offense has on the field, not necessarily just the 3-3 box itself. But we're currently 3-3-5 personnel. We play tight front. We don't play 3-3 stack. I talked about it earlier in this video. I've got some 3-3 stack stuff ready to go that we could play that I don't know if or when I'm going to put it in, but we are not a 3-3 stack team, but we are 3-3 personnel, if that makes sense. So I like our personnel group. I think anybody that's good at running screens is a pain in the ass for everybody. I like our personnel group versus screen game because I think I've got enough second and third level players that can run to screens. Um, but if they're screening you and it's kind of like the new school spread, the way Tennessee does stuff. It's vertical passing game, vertical run game. So they spread you out, but they run the ball in between the tackles. And a lot of times in today's game, spread offenses, it's runs tied with passes and RPOs, and they want to attack B gap bubbles. Um, I think the better offenses nowadays are the ones that are very physical in the run game, whether it be quarterback runs or regular gap scheme runs. And then they also spread you out and they're trying to dictate numbers in the box to run the ball. But if they don't get those numbers and they have leverage, they can do other things with the ball. So I like our personnel grouping for that stuff. Sometimes when the ball is run right at us, our personnel grouping isn't the greatest. But in high school, you don't really have that many other personnel groupings. So, like, if we were playing a team that was 22 personnel, I don't have a lot of changes that I can make personnel-wise. Our bigger bodies are offensive linemen. We're a tempo team. Don't like using those guys on D-line. So I think the misnomer sometimes in high school is like personnel matchups. The kids we're playing on defense are the best kids we have to play defense, so we have to play defense the way that they can effectively play it. So there's not a lot of personnel changes we can make, so that becomes an issue. I think there may have been a year or two here or there where we tilted a kid. I'm not a big tilt technique guy, but I think the tilt can become effective. For me, I think if we were trying to cross face back blocks, uh, or hump back blocks, the terminology that people use, if our shade was getting back blocked in gap schemes and we were trying to get them across the back block, I think I would tilt them. If we were trying to maybe compress, if our shade was an up the field player that was just getting smashed on back blocks because he runs up the field, we might tilt him and change his departure angle. So we say, all right, look, if you're going to get up the field, if I tilt you now, when you get up the field, you're going to get straight into the back block instead of a lot of times kids run up the field and the center blocks back on a gap scheme and they get blocked 4 gaps over because it's a combination of them running up the field, the back block coming in. Now it just looks like that. So to me, the two reasons I would do it would be to try and cross face the back block or to try and compress the back block backwards, especially if I had a bigger kid. I might try and take that back block and compress it back into the pullers. So I could certainly see you doing it. To me, again, it doesn't. I always refer back to structure. And if you're playing a traditional overfront and that kid's an A-gap player and he's tilted, it doesn't change the structure of the defense. So it's more of a technique deal. So to me, it doesn't. If it works for that kid, then I think it's certainly feasible. I don't think it's not a structure deal for me. It's a technique deal. So certainly you could do it, Tim. Onside away from where cross starts. 1 is go. 2 is deep out. Yeah, so as a split field safety team, middle of the field open, one thing you've got to harp your safeties about routes, Y cross, climb, under Sam over Mike. To me, those routes are still working vertically. So we don't unchain that route immediately. Our high safety doesn't unchain it immediately as an under route when it goes under to Sam. If that kid's demeanor is taking him under Sam over Mike, if I can still see the front of his jersey and his face mask on his angle, I hang on to that vertical as long as I possibly can. But one of the things that we try to do if we can, depending on where 3 is pushing to, if 3 is pushing to the side that the cross is coming from, then I will take my middle safety and try and exchange that right now to where he'll cut the cross. If three is pushing to the side that the cross is going and it creates a flood on the front side with Y cross coming on the back side, um, it's hard for us to 3-2 exchange that. So now it's either my high safety, he's got to carry it across the field, or I've got to get a Sam linebacker or somebody that can drop with enough depth that they can affect, or the curl dropper has to have enough depth when three pushes. So, like for us, if three push to the side of the Y cross is going to, and it was a flood front side, Y cross coming from the back side, I would have to teach my middle safety that when three pushes and he comes down, if there's no route coming back inside, he's going to have to look up the cross coming from behind him. So, if that was a deal that we knew we were seeing, then that's something we'd have to work on in practice a bunch and figure out if they're running one go, two deep out flood stuff with Y over, and our offense does it to us a bunch. That's something you just got to rep, and then you've got to carry some coverage change ups to it to where they don't get exactly. We'll play some cover two stuff to it to where now the curl dropper doesn't have to worry about getting underneath the 10-yard, 12-yard out. Our corner can sink. If three was going away from where the cross is headed, the way we play it, when three went away, my middle safety would push, and now the first route coming back to him is the cross. So we would 3-2 exchange, and he would cut the cross. So for me, three going away from the side the cross is going to makes it easier for me to play it personally. So I know that that's probably the traditional air raid way or however you want to look at it. But the way we play our coverage is if you send three away, I can now 2-3 exchange with my middle safety, and he can cut the crosser. If you sent three to the side of the go and the out, and you flooded that side and you brought the cross from the backside, which I know a lot of people true air raid don't do or don't like doing, that's a bigger issue for me on defense. That's a harder play for me to defend. If you send the cross, or I'm sorry, if you send the back to the side the cross starts on, now my middle safety pushes, and when he pushes, the next route coming in is the cross, and he cuts it. So structurally for me, I would much rather defend the Y cross with the back going to the side that the cross starts on than I would the other way. And if I was an offense, I would rather run it the other way. I would rather push the back to the side of the flood and bring the crosser from the side away from the back is how I would personally. For me, I think that's a better combination for us as an offense, and it's a tougher combination to defend. But I know the air raid people and the true Y cross people, they run it the way they run it. So that's built into their progressions. They know what they're trying to attack. They know why they like it. So I just know for me as a defense, that would be easier for me to defend the way we play it. Now, traditional split field, it would be the Mike that has to cut the crosser. And if your Mike can't run with the crosser, or, that's probably tougher to do. But the way we play it, it ends up being my middle safety who 2-3 exchanges. So three pushes, he plays the next route coming in. The next route coming in is the cross. Now I have my middle safety almost like a rat or a low hole player that's cutting that crosser now. So I would much rather see the combination that way. I would do the same thing. I wouldn't change one bit. You keep your flood concept on the front side. So one runs go, two runs sail. The back pushes. So now you've got flood on the front side. So if you like flood on the front side, you're perfect. If you get off of flood, now you have Y cross coming. So that's, to me, you're building. Then the other thing, the other great component to that is take the Y cross and run them shallow and create flood that way. So now one runs go, two runs sail. The Y cross player, you might have to condense his split a little bit, but instead of running the climb or the Y cross, he runs the low part of the flood. Takes a little bit longer to develop, but now you get number one vertical, number two on the sail, and the flat route becomes the backside crosser. That's another way to build the flood concept. And our offense does it to us all the time. It drives me nuts. They build flood from so many different formations. Thank you, Joe. They build flood from so many different variations and formations and how they get the flood. So it's a good deal. And to me, it's we were never a big Y cross team. So Y cross was always a component built in to our offense. And the easiest way for me to do it was off flood. So we would run flood and then just tag Y cross on the backside. So I like it as an offense personally. I know that when I talk to people about it, they would do something different with the back. But again, I don't think any of those things are I don't think, for me at least, I don't think any of those things are deal breakers. I'm going to skip this ad. No need to see another ad. I don't think any of those things are deal breakers from an offensive standpoint. Like I don't think it has to be run one way or the other. I know people like to run it one way or the other. But again, I don't think it kills the intention of the play. Because you're running it a little bit differently. But that's just the way I look at it offensively. But again, it'll offense and defense. It's the same theory. It's your structure on offense and how you teach your structure and how you teach your quarterback and where your sight adjusts and hot throws are built in if you're pushing the back. So, I realize why people carry it that way. I understand why they carry it that way. You also build in curl flat on the backside. So when you send the back to the side that the cross is coming from, you're building flood on the front side, or you're building, sail with Y cross on the front side. But if the rotation takes that away, or if you teach the quarterback off of rotation, if it's taken away there, now on the backside, you're building either curl flat or dig flat or something back to the single receiver side now, because the number 2 is running across. So if the back is going to the side that number 2 is running the cross from, it becomes a single and a back. So now you're building curl flat theories or other theories back to the single. So, that's one of the reasons I think run and shoot guys do it that way, is because if they teach it as a progression to the quarterback and the Y cross is not what they like on that side, now it comes back to the other side and it becomes, curl flat is basically the easiest way. Curl flat itself is basically dead to too high. But if you're running Y cross and you think the too high guy is carrying the cross, now the too high structure is kind of dead post snap, and it becomes just a corner and a flat player on the other side. So I think that's why people would do it. When we were a curl flat team and we played too high, we would always make the number 2 run post, and we would run post curl flat, and we would get the safety out of the way, and now we would just make it a curl flat concept. And then if they were goes backside, so those, all the things that make offense interesting and all the things that make offense a pain in the ass. Defensively, when you're defending offenses, those things are all a pain in the ass. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is when those things become an issue, you start to pressure, you play man free or different man deals. So, every coverage has beaters, and when they know what you're playing, they can draw beaters up to beat the coverage. You've got to teach your kids how to play the coverage versus the beaters, and then you've got to teach your kids what the answers are to the beaters, so that you don't sit in the same thing all night long. So that's but those are all good questions, people. And that's what makes the game so interesting and what makes it so fun. It's the chess match every down between the OC, the DC, and their players and your players. And we're running this because I think you're in that, and then you rotate or don't play what I think you're in. So we got to have another answer. So, that's what makes all of it so interesting. And what makes football such a unique game is all those moving parts and how those moving parts change from play to play, snap to snap. And most, like, most good offenses and defense are always going to have an answer. So if you're a wide cross team and the other team is doing something to take wide cross away, you have answers to do things that attack what they're doing to take wide cross away. If you're a defense and wide cross is killing you, you're going to do things that help you play wide cross better. And then when you do something to help you play wide cross better, now that coverage has probably got a weakness to something else. So, I think that's the other reason I think, at least in my opinion, when personally, when you see teams play a bunch of man stuff in high school, I think it's because man stuff becomes so much easier to teach the kids. And if you start panicking and saying, all right, well, we're playing too high and they're running wide cross and they're killing us, let's play man. Now, if you get beat, it's more of their kid versus your kid, their dude versus your dude. But you're not getting beat in necessarily a coverage structure that's being exploited. You're getting beat by a matchup. So when teams come out and they're multi-formational or they're motioning and shifting and trading a bunch and it's messing with your base coverages, I think it's easiest for a lot of coaches to say, you know what, there's too much going on. Let's play man. You have him, you have him, you have him. And it makes things a little bit easier from an alignment standpoint on defense. It makes things a little bit easier from an assignment standpoint, but it makes run fits tougher, matchups tougher. Now completed passes, like I said earlier in the video, 2 touchdowns we gave up last time were both man deals. One was a blown coverage with the quarterback extending the play, and one was poor leverage running to a bubble. So, the bubble deal was certainly not a coverage component problem. If the bubble deal was a coverage we were in where they had leverage and numbers and they threw the bubble and circled the defense, then that's on me and our structure. And that's a great job by the offense. The bubble we gave up for a touchdown last night was actually a man deal where we had 3 over 3. So there wasn't the leverage issue became how the player played the bubble. He didn't get cracked. He didn't get blocked. His angle was poor. And then the other 2 man players got blocked. So we just, numbers wide, to me, if I was an offense, the bubble to 3 over 3 isn't always the greatest look. I know it's still a good play because you can crack people, and man to man is tough to play when a guy gets cracked and he has to crack support. But from a numbers leverage standpoint, bubble to 3 over 3, if you were a check with me team and you were giving your quarterback tools, if he saw 3 over the top of 3, he probably wouldn't throw the bubble. So, that's one of those deals where you just got to look at it and figure out, why it was an issue. And for us last night, it was an issue because we didn't take the appropriate angle to tackle the bubble. So, that's another part of the deal that you got to figure out that makes the game so interesting. But if you guys have any other questions or things you want to talk about, go ahead and throw them out there. It's 9:20. I have work at the golf course at 5 a.m. And then all afternoon tomorrow, I have to do my football work. So there'll be some more film work done tonight. Take another look at who we're playing, take another look at our game. And then 5 o'clock work in the morning. And then after I work in the morning, I play my round of golf, which I need in my life as my stress relief and my my weekly activity to get my mind off of. Unfortunately, during the football season, my mind doesn't get off it. So the whole time I'm playing golf tomorrow, I'm going to be thinking about structure, pressure, coverages, film I just watched, what we did Friday night, what the team we're playing is. So I try to block that out when I'm rolling greens in the morning. And then when I play my round of golf, I try and block that out as much as I can so that I get some free time, but it never happens. Unfortunately, once your brain goes one way, it kind of goes that way. So for me, once it goes football, it doesn't go back. Yeah, I'm going to hit it straight, Tim. The problem is I don't hit it as long as I used to, but it's probably going to be straight most of the time. Got to make some putts. If I putt well, I'll be okay. It's a Sunday skins game, so score really goes out the window. You got to make a bunch of birdies or eagles if you want to make money. So putter's got to get hot. got to hit it in play, but the putter's got to get hot. If the putter gets hot, we'll be fine. So problem is when you only play once a week. I worked this morning, rolled greens, and then I putted for a little bit. But when you only play once a week, the putter has a tendency to not be so good. We're suburban. We're not rural. I'm at a private school, technically in Duval County, so we're in a suburban matchup. Um, I have a Scotty Cameron Newport Select 2. Great question, Teradome. Um, I don't really know Galaxy, to be honest with you. And the reason I say that, I've been a head coach in Florida for 23 years. 95% of my experience coaching is in Florida, with 2 years as a GA at St. John's University in New York. So all of my high school experience is in Florida. And in 23 years, every time classifications change, somebody's going to bitch about it anyway. So I've never appealed a district. I've never left a district. I basically, wherever the state puts us, I show up and play. Um, I wouldn't want the state's job to worry about classifications, and I'm glad I don't have it. But I also don't spend a lot of my time worrying about where they put us, because I think no matter what classifications there are out there, somebody's going to bitch and complain. I know a lot of the teams that bitch and complain now, it's because you get some matchups early in the playoffs that are two teams that probably could have played for a state title. I get, I'm not for or against. I'm not for or against the classification deal. I get why people hate it. I get why people like it. The people that like it are happy. The people that hate it aren't. But I've been doing this long enough to know that anytime the state classifies, there's always going to be 100 appeals, and there's always going to be people that try to get out of the district they're in. There's always going to be people that try to go down to 4 or up to 5, or try to change their numbers, their enrollment, so that they can get somewhere else. So I don't spend a lot of time worrying about the classification stuff. It's like for us, they put us in with one of the best programs in the state of Florida, and that's our district. You can bitch about it or you can be about it, one or the other. So I mean, I don't. Hopefully, Galaxy, if you're somewhere and you guys got screwed, then I certainly see where you might have an issue. But I just know from experience of doing this for a long time, every year new districts come out. Every year new bitches and complaints come out. I don't want that job. I don't want anything to do with that job. It's going to happen every year. So next year, if they do something else, you're going to get another round of complaints. So I don't think the FHSAA is ever in a position to do the right thing from a classification standpoint. That's just my opinion. I know I catch hell for that opinion all the time, but I try not to give a shit about it. But I just don't think it's worth a complaint. If they put you in a district that's tough, then go shock the world, or take the angle and approach with your kids that you got put in a bad position, and we're going to fight our way out of it. If you get a district that's advantageous to you, then I guess that's part of the deal, and it's maybe good luck. But I don't see wasting time worrying about classifications. Terradome, it's 90%. It's the putt E, not the putter. So I've putted with about everything in my life. Yeah, I think a lot of the guys in South Florida were the major complainers. And again, I can see why. They're bitches. They think it was done because people hate the fact that South Florida teams are winning state titles. So I certainly see that. That's a good question, Joe. 3M, I think. I don't know. We're in with Bowles. Last year we lost to Bishop Moore in the first round, so I think we're 3M, maybe 2M. I don't know. Now that I'm not a head coach, I really don't care anymore. I know who we have to play. I know who we have to beat, and I kind of know who the playoff matchups might be. But I guess last I don't trying to think who the we lost to Bishop Moore. Bowles beat Episcopal and then beat Bishop Moore. Lee and somebody played. I guess I want to say 3M, but probably shitty that I don't know. But honestly, I don't. I know who we need to beat, um, and then I kind of have an understanding of who's in our region um, for the playoffs. But I couldn't really tell you if it's 2M or 3M. Sorry. But if you know what the classifications are, then all the schools that I listed are in that classification. But yeah, yeah, Galaxy. That's what pisses people off is if your agenda is you think it was done to stop South Florida teams from winning state titles, then I would see why you have a bitch. Um, I don't think that was the initial intent of it. I think the intent of it was obviously looking at how many state championships come from um, metro, suburban, or however you want to look at it. I think. Thank you, Joe. Um, I think. I think the intent of it was to look at where, not necessarily who was winning state titles, but where the state titles were coming from. Um, so, like for us, we got grouped in with the Duval schools, and because Reigns, or had won a state title, or maybe Trinity had won a state title. Technically we're in Duval, even though we're a private school, so we got grouped in with them. So, that's how our classification ended up going. So, I think everybody probably could or does have a complaint or a bitch if they wanted to, but um, I'm just not. I'm not one of those. I don't complain too much about it. It worked out all right for us last year. We snuck a win in versus Bowl somehow and won the district. So, but then we lost in the first round to Bishop Moore. So I'm not really upset one way or the other. I don't think it's a bad draw for us. I don't think it's I don't think it's an advantageous draw. I think it is what it is. And if we get to the playoffs, we got to be good enough to win a few games. And last year we weren't. Um, you know, I think we were good enough. I just defensively we didn't do a good job in the playoff game. So I think we need to play better to win playoff games. But I don't think it was a Bishop Moore was a great team. They were well coached. It was a good matchup for us. It was a good matchup for them. Bowles beat them the next week after we beat Bowles during the regular season. So obviously the matchups were very conducive. So I wasn't upset with it at all. But I appreciate all you guys being here. I appreciate all the comments, questions tonight. I'm going to try and do this almost every week if I can, because I want to get to a point when the guys up north start playing games and everybody else starts playing games. I want to get to a point where we can discuss what you're seeing, what issues you're having on both sides of the ball, what's giving you trouble. We can discuss what is now the new trends in football. So I want to keep this rolling throughout the year, as long as I have the energy to do it, because each day gets a little bit tougher having to work all week, work at the golf course in the morning, and then have to get up to work again tomorrow morning. But don't feel terrible right now. So I think we can, depending on how the weeks go, I think we can keep it going and keep doing these. And I think that's the best way for us to interact personally. You too, pal. I think that's the best way for us to interact and understand, rather than a question on a video here or there. Again, we're still going to do videos. I do less of them during the season simply because of the time frame. I do more Patreon work during the season because it's easier for me to take games that we played and show people what we did drive by drive and where we had trouble. So during the season, the YouTube videos are a little bit less. So I think live is the best way for us to stay in communication. Questions you have, you can ask me on a live setting, and we can talk about what you're seeing the following week. We play Bishop Kenny, and that's the only week I hope you don't win. Other than that, I hope everybody wins every week. And look for this probably Saturday again this week, depending on how the week goes. But try and keep it rolling. Try and keep the lives going. Try and keep doing at least 1 or 2 YouTube videos a week. The normal shorts that we've been doing, just to keep the information out there, to keep everybody dialed in to what's going on. So appreciate you guys following the channel. Appreciate you guys following what I do. Appreciate you guys being in the football world. It's not an easy world to be in. So I understand all the struggles that you go through, and appreciate it. Hope your mental health is well. Hope your physical health is well. Hope your families are all doing good. You won't play well until you play fast. Greens don't roll well until they roll fast, and I'll get them going tomorrow morning. See you guys next time.